Hello, I'm Nikki Starr, welcome back to my channel. Today we are facing the blankest of blank pages. Possibly not the blankest of blank pages because I haven't written this book before, but we are attempting to write Project Magic and we have nothing in this draft. It's completely rewrite, completely from the top. I do have the outline up until Act 2. So if you haven't seen my previous video, I've done a similar thing to how I've done the previous book I did as well, of planning up until the end of Act 2 to allow myself to add in a bunch of stuff and then plan Act 3 as I get closer, rather than attempting now to know exactly how I want Act 3 to go and then add a bunch of stuff into Act 1 and Act 2 that I have to resolve somehow and I haven't got time or space. And so today is the 3rd of June. My hope is, and we will see if this will work, my hope is that I can get about 3 hours of this in. Again, if you haven't seen my videos, what I consider to be a creative hour is actually 40 minutes within the hour, because that gives me time to both set up for what I'm doing, but also to do kind of Pomodoros, and that means I can get a 20-minute time in with a 10-minute time off and do 2 of those in an hour. I also plan it in that way because then theoretically I can get ahead of myself. If I manage to do the whole 40 minutes straight through, I could then take a 10-minute break and go again. So we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of tempted, because I have a feeling that this is going to be difficult. I'm tempted to find a video with like sprints and follow along with it. One of the things that I am trying desperately in my head today, while I've been getting ready this morning, to remind myself is that it is okay that this is difficult. It doesn't mean that something wrong with the way that I'm doing something if it's hard. One thing I did realise, in May I was working mostly on my romance book because I'd kind of outlined this book and put it to one side and wanted to leave it some time to see if anything new came up into my mind and then start in June. With the romance books, I got, for this particular book, I got about halfway through last time I wrote, and then I hadn't touched it for like 4 months or something. So I kind of thought, oh, I need to reread it through. I've lost the complete thread of where I am. So I reread up to where I was, and then rather than continuing to draft, I went back to the first chapter and started writing and sort of changing bits and adding scenes as I went through. I have never, it's going to sound really silly, but I have never done that before. I've only ever so far like redrafted stuff, and so that was kind of the way I thought that I needed to do things. And doing it with the romance books, where I'm kind of going through each chapter, is coming out surprisingly well. So I am going to allow myself to be as bad as I need to be today, just to get the first starts of these books out of me. So Project Magic is a standalone, but it's in the world of my Space Pirate series. So I have like a universe plotted out with different kinds of magics. I have different systems. I have a little map somewhere. This is kind of set before any of the main Space Pirates books run, in a specific location, whereas the Space Pirates kind of covers everything. So it's kind of a little introduction to the world and like another route in. So if, for example, if I do manage to publish these books, the idea of a 9-book series is either daunting to a reader or a publisher, which is both completely legitimate. I have another kind of, the light's doing weird things, isn't it, when I look away? I apologise for the light. I have another like route into the world, and then I want to pepper a few more standalones in if I can. I've got a few ideas, some of which are very specific to characters in the Space Pirates world, and some of them are just generic ideas of like what's happening in the world. So all that being said, I am now probably procrastinating. I do have some energy and a protein shake to can't do this until I put the same time. And a protein shake as well, so we'll see how this all goes. You are perched in a way at the moment that is to hide the mess. I said it isn't the tidiest at the moment, but rather than say to myself I can't do anything until the whole study is tidied up, which means I spend the whole day like pulling stuff out of drawers and decluttering and stuff because I'll just fixate rather than getting on with it. We're going to get on with it and then we'll work on this. So I will catch up with you all a little bit later. It's about an hour later. I've done a 25-minute sprint and a 15-minute sprint, and I am struggling. That last sprint was supposed to be 25 minutes and I got to the end of a chapter and just stopped. And I've done 2 chapters in that time. So I've only written about 1,700 words, but I suddenly have 2 chapters, which means I'm doing them too fast. That isn't the end of the world. I can edit them later. I can deal with it. But I feel like if I keep going, I am just going to fall into some kind of pit of writing despair. That sounds quite dramatic. Like I'm not going to get the full 3 hours in if I push myself to now, and I'm not convinced I will in general get the full 3 hours in. But my thinking is if I stop now and maybe switch projects to a little bit of romance book, I can take some of the romance book time off of a later week in the month and add Project Magic onto that. So hopefully I'll get a bit more in the swing of it as I do more and more over the month. But I am struggling. It is not coming out correctly. I have written these particular scenes now. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time because I've redone this draft so many times, and the world is very different because I'm trying to incorporate it into the Space Pirates world. So I'm having to tweak certain bits of it and still try and keep kind of the vibe. And I don't know if I'm doing it. I don't know if I'm doing it very well. I don't know if anyone else has done this, but you've done multiple drafts. If you know the scene really well, it's really difficult to do it fresh and still find it interesting. I feel like I'm struggling with it all. So if I do any more today or tomorrow over the weekend, I will update you. I will catch up with this vlog when I next do some Project Magic, but yeah, it's currently it's being pulled out of my soul in a way I wasn't expecting it to. So I think I need to step away from it for a bit. Maybe wait for the caffeine to kick in and we'll see if that helps. So it is the 23rd of June. So relying on my spreadsheet, it's been 20 days since I both updated you and did any form of writing, or at least have done writing on Project Magic. I think I may have touched the romance book at some point, but I can't promise that. I can't remember what I've done. June has been a blur, but in a good way this time. Unlike last time, I took a bit of a break from this, which was unintentional and for medical reasons. This time I just had lots of social weekends and lots of really good stuff going on. So I'm not massively annoyed that this has happened, but we are where we are. I have had this week off from work, and again, I've been doing a lot of other things that have been going on. So it is now Friday afternoon, and this is the first time I'm going to kind of sit down and write. My partner is away for the whole weekend, so they won't be back until Sunday afternoon, depending on how it all goes. I have a solid weekend of time that I can write, but primarily that I can also rest in. Not all of the things we've been doing have been inherently restful. They've all been good, they've all been very social, but I am someone who requires time away from every other human to fully recharge myself. So this weekend will provide that if I give it the space, because I'm completely alone this weekend, and most of even my friends are either off doing the same thing as my partner or they're off doing other things. So it will be pretty much entirely just me. So the plan currently, as it stands, is to have Sunday completely free of any creative work and to use that to just tidy the house if I feel like it, maybe do a bit of the garden, which I'm doing a bit of today and I might show you bits and pieces of, and in general rest. It's going to be my self-care day for the month, which is something I implemented a year and a half ago, to make sure that once a month I'm having a day where I'm not expecting anything of myself. So I can just put on a film if I want. I can do a little bit of crafting if I fancy it. I could write if I really felt like it, but the idea is to remove myself from the expectation to do anything and to chill out. Outside of that, today and tomorrow then will be my creative days. So I wasn't able to be part of the Storytellers Hearth's write-in last weekend because of all the social things we were doing. So what I may do, I'm toying with it, is to put the streams on from that, because of the fact that I had planned in to do a certain number of hours per week. To catch up, I need to do about 10 hours on Project Magic and about 4 hours on my romance book. It will get me caught up to where I want to be by the end of this week. And then next week is a little bit extra due for the end of June. And then next week I'll kick off my July goals. Now, before I get back into actually anything book related, one thing I wanted to mention on here was July camp. Now, if you've watched my previous video about me scaling back on a lot of this stuff, she says, knowing full well she's about to try and do a 14-hour write-off on in the next 2 days, you will have seen that I have been toying with reducing the amount of things I'm expecting myself to do. One of the things I'm going to implement is that I'm going to set absolutely no creative goals for July. That doesn't necessarily mean that I won't do something. It doesn't necessarily mean that I won't get like the urge to do something creative and do it anyway, but I am not going to have any expectations, kind of like that self-care day, but like the month of July, which also happens to be my birthday month, is just going to be everything gets turned off. Everything. When I was doing an elaborate plan for scaling back on what I'm doing, one of the things that I wanted to be clear with myself on is that I can't expect creative work in all the aspects I do it in to work every single month for the whole year without proper breaks. The same way that with my 9-to-5 job, I am given a certain number of weeks in the year, or days, depending on how it all shakes out for the particular job, to take away from that job. And that this is a job that doesn't include any weekend work, whereas my creative stuff often I'm doing in the week and the weekend, but I'm still given that extra space to pull away from it. So one of the things I want to implement is that for each of my different kind of creative paths, sounding a bit weird now, I give myself 2 months of pulling back and not setting expectations for that particular activity in that month. July, I'm toying with the idea of it being absolutely everything. So if I go forward with this in future years, July being my birthday month will be a month where I'm not expecting anything of myself. If I find that I'm doing something, wonderful, but I do not have to. And then throughout the year, my other creative endeavours will have a month somewhere where it's off, except for my main writing books, which the other month off will be NaNoWriMo, because I'm going to try and be less strict on myself with NaNoWriMo. I still want to hit the goal, but I am going to allow myself more passion projects as part of that. Like if I have a really silly idea for something, I'm just going to do it. Like it doesn't have to be the next thing that is moving me forward like it has been for the last 4 or 5 years, where I have to do something that feels like it's part of my overall plan. But that will be my other month off, which is it's not really how a month off would work. By making myself write 50k, but it's fine. What it means for this channel is that all of July, I say this like it hasn't been the norm, but all of July's videos will be timer videos. So I keep hearing bands outside of our road, and I'm expecting a package, and we're a very quiet cul-de-sac, so it's not often that people drive down our road, so I'm just looking out for them. Everything on this channel will be timer related videos. If in the month I do any writing, and if I do any writing, I choose to put the camera on, which may not be the case, then I will let you all know in August how it went, what did I do, if anything. But the expectation at the moment is nothing will happen, and it will be a month of rest from my creative stuff. For anyone who's been here for a significant period of time, I do have another YouTube channel, which is now pretty much on a permanent hiatus. I haven't posted on there for a significant period of time because it was the one that was stressing me out the most, and also the one that didn't feel quite as connected. So because I want to try and keep with the writing, it makes sense to keep doing the AuthorTube channel, whereas the video gaming channel's got nothing to do with it. We're just going to put that to one side for now, and then later if we have the energy to pick it back up, we will do so. But I am struggling with both motivation and mental energy in general for anything, so I am prioritising my main writing series, my romance novel, and this channel. Everything else is kind of back burner, or if I have the time and the inclination at the same point, I'll give it a go, but that doesn't happen as often as it should have done. All of that being said, where are we with the writing project? So it's Project Magic. I did a total of 40 minutes on the 3rd of June for a total of 1,722 words. So that's as far in as we are. I remember feeling very downtrodden. Is that the right word I want to use? Very disheartened by what was coming out of me. I needed to write it from scratch with a slightly different structure. We're now in 2 points of view, which I tried to do a little bit in a previous NaNoWriMo. I didn't finish the book all the way through, but we're adding in the magic world. We're essentially adding in this new point of view the whole way through. The previous structure I had kind of we start from the beginning and go chronologically, and now I'm kind of working on a then and now kind of thing. Same thing I do in my Space Pirates books. Every 4th chapter is going back and telling what happened before we got to the start of the book, because it kind of gives a bit more movement to what we're doing. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it on this book, and I don't know if this is just going to be the way that any book in the Space Pirates world is just written. I guess at some point that will be for beta readers and or agents to tell me that it's not working and I need to stop doing it. But for now, I'm moving forward with that. We are not very far in at all, if I remember correctly. Let me just find where I was on my campfire. I am also boiling because I've closed the window so my neighbours don't have to hear me babbling on my own. Somehow we got 2 chapters in on just shy of 2,000 words, which worries me ever so slightly. I don't know if I am best off basically going to the beginning of those chapters, reading them through, adding bits to it, because it's been 20 days. I could read the last bit of the other chapter, but there's so few words in there that I wonder if I can add or tweak bits to that, because that seems far too short for 2 chapters to be. Considering we're going to 51 chapters, if that carries on, we're hitting 25k and then we're stopping, which is not ideal. Some of them, I think some of the other chapters have multiple scenes, whereas I think the first 2 are maybe not significant enough to be their own scene. They always felt like they were, and they were in the last few drafts, so maybe it's like something I need to add in. There's a lot of tension in these first 2 that maybe I haven't quite worked out. Maybe that was why it was messing me around so much last time. But what I'm going to do is open a window so I can get some form of air in here. I'm going to put on the TV and I'm going to put it onto some of the Story Hearth's writing sprints, and then we're going to see how we go. I would like to get 3 hours of it done today and then try and get the rest of it done tomorrow, which does mean an 11-hour day tomorrow. We will see how that goes. I'm gonna make no promises about that one. But alternatively, if I can get more done today, I can have less tomorrow. So I will, at some point today, be going back out into the garden, checking on all the things that I'm attempting to bottom water. I have a lot of seedlings that we're not able to put into pots yet because we don't have enough compost to make all the pots work. So at the moment they're on like little tiny things, but I have a little bit of compost. So I am potting up some into slightly bigger ones, particularly my tomatoes where the roots are just all coming out the bottom of the pot now, in the hopes that they survive a little bit longer until we can get some dirt next weekend and deal with it. It is very nice weather today, so there is also the possibility now that I could go sit outside because we have a parasol. I wouldn't do it now because it is still roughly midday sun. It's 2 o'clock, so it's still very warm, and I was out there earlier for collectively probably half an hour to 45 minutes and started burning, so with sun cream on, so I'm not going to trust myself with that. But theoretically we could do a bit of an outside writing sprint as well. It would be a bit harder if I'm following writing sprints at that point, but we'll work it out. Or tomorrow if I need a change of scenery, which is very likely to be the case. So all that being said, let's get on with this. Okay, so the makeup is a little bit worse for wear and my hair has been up in a bun for most of that, so it's a bit of a mess. But we are now at about 20 to 7. I have been using the Storyteller Hearth's productivity sprints. The first one I followed pretty much the T. So I did the full 2.5 hours, which had 100 minutes of sprint time kind of within it. So by my 40 minutes is an hour, we managed to do 2.5 hours on that sprint. And then I had a nice early dinner because it was just a pre-made salad in the fridge. So there was no thinking, there was no faffing, I just ate the food. And then I went on to the second sprint. After I'd eaten, and I had done a little bit in the garden, I just kind of felt like I wanted to get straight into it. So I fast forwarded to the first sprint. And then when I got to the end of the first 25-minute sprint, I thought, no, I'm in the flow, I need to keep going. And again, I fast forwarded to the next 25-minute sprint in a move that is now becoming very rare for me to do. We did a 50-minute sprint all the way through, somehow. In total, I have sprinted for 150 minutes this afternoon, or evening-y time, which got me just shy, and I probably should have kept writing once I realised this, just shy of 7,000. I'm on 6,962 words for the day. And for overall numbers, we're on 8,684. Now, like I said that I was going to do, in the first couple of sprints, I went to the first few chapters and I went through and I looked through them and added to them. They are not as bad as I thought they were. They are not as lacking as I was convinced they would be. So I was able to go through and add a few bits and pieces, but it did kind of slow me down a little bit in the beginning with like my words per minute that I track. But I picked up the pace and I am getting into the meat and bones of it. It is changing from my outline already, not in big dramatic Well, kind of. Not necessarily in the way the plot is going forward, but the motivations behind it. I realised quite early on that my female main character loses a lot of agency very, very quickly in quick succession, which in the initial outline was intended to feel as if she's losing her ability to keep track of her own life and everyone is taking it from her, and then she'd reclaim it a bit more later. But I got to this kind of moment, I wasn't expecting to write the way I wrote it, and I gave her a little bit extra agency. And for this particular thing that's happening, she's chosen to let it happen. All the things that are previously happening to her, she's got no say over. But in this one instance, she's stepping up and she's able to take that agency early on. And I think that's more important to this character, because for all the flashbacks of her, anytime we go back to all the flashbacks, she is very young. In most cases, she's a child, doesn't have that agency, things are happening to her. And I just could see it getting really repetitive throughout the whole book, even with the main storyline, her stepping into that a bit more. So I've kind of pulled that in a bit earlier, and I want to try and, where I can, make use of that more. So obviously she won't have agency in every situation, because that isn't how any form of plot works. She can't be in control of every single thing that's going to happen. Something is going to have to go wrong for her at some point. But the idea of being that she chooses this particular event, which is also, I think, could be wrong, I think it's lining up around the debate area. So it feels like the right step for her to choose to do this thing that I can't explain in detail. But as I suspected, one of my points of view is significantly harder to write than the other, because one of them has significantly less going on right now. My female main character has a lot going on. Her world is collapsing around her ears, and my male main character has just kind of bound himself in this situation with her. So I need to make it slightly more interesting from his point of view. So we're going to work on that. But for now, very happy with the progress we're making. We got to about chapter 6, but we haven't quite finished it. I'd got through all the notes in my outline, and then I wanted a bit extra. It just wasn't feeling like a full chapter, so we're adding a little extra scene at the end, which is mostly just the female character realising that she didn't know the male character's name until a little while ago. For all the stuff that's been happening in the first 5 chapters, she's at no point got his name, asked for his name, or heard anyone refer to him. So as soon as someone does, she goes, oh, you have a name. That makes sense. But yes, so I think I'm going to call it there. I was kind of expecting myself to follow that sprint through and therefore I think they did another 2 25-minute sprints at the beginning about hitting 100 minutes. I don't know if they actually followed through on that or not. But I think my brain is mush. And I think 7K and my equivalent of 3.75 hours is sufficient for today. Tomorrow it means I've got to do about 6.25 hours to get to my 10 hours for Project Magic, and then I've got to pick up some romance stuff. So I've kind of loosely planned out using those sprints again, so starting from sprint 3, or maybe going back and doing sprint 2 properly. I don't really know how I'm going to feel it tomorrow. Using 4 of those sprints will take me through most of the day, but assuming that everyone hits at least 60 minutes, which I think someone on one of the sprints was saying that they need to hit 80 or 90. So I'm underestimating myself, which I always prefer to do. In 4 sprints worth of time, so 4 2.5 hour blocks, I would get to just what I need for Project Magic, which would mean that if that is the case, I wouldn't necessarily be doing romance stuff. But in both the ones so far, there's been more actual sprint time than that. So what I'm thinking is hopefully there might be some speeding up to this, and that maybe the last one, either I say, my brain's mush, I don't want to do it, you can't make me, or the last section is the romance book if I need a break. But at any point tomorrow where this is starting to drag, then it will end up going to the other one. I'm actually quite liking the pacing of this, and it hasn't quite yet felt like I'm pulling it out of me painfully. It is just kind of flowing so far. Whether it will still feel like that when I am going back and rereading it, who knows, because you can never really tell. But the plan tomorrow does rely on me getting up at about 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll see how that goes, because I'd quite like to have breaks in between. So I've said 8 o'clock to 10:30, within a half an hour break, so doing then 11 till 1:30, and then giving myself an hour and a half for lunch to really try and relax my brain, and then going from 3 till 4:30 for the next sprint, and then dinner, and again giving myself another hour and a half, because I think by that point my brain will be mush, to see if that helps me calm and relax enough to do one between 7 and 9:30. We'll see how that goes. There are a few other bits and pieces I wanted to get done tomorrow. So if I wake up earlier, perfect. If I don't need the breaks, perfect. If I manage to do more sprinting in these sprints and therefore don't need as many of them, I could do some bits at the end, also fine. If I wake up tomorrow and I have absolutely no mood to do this, or by the time I actually feel like I can get started, it's like 11 or 12, we'll work with it. I am going to try my absolute hardest to be as compassionate with myself as possible. Because often when I've had really good writing sessions like this, sometimes the next morning it's harder to get back into it because I've used up quite a bit of creative energy, it feels sometimes like. But also today I've currently got the feeling of I've still got 2 days worth of my like holiday before I go back to work, or the weekend is still like fully in front of me. Sometimes I get to, especially like midday on a Saturday, and it feels like, well, we're almost done, it's over. So if that happens, I might become a little bit less productive, but we're going to see what happens going forward. I am enjoying it though so far, which I wasn't expecting, because I really was expecting this to drag out of me, and I really was expecting to switch the romance project a little bit tonight, going I can't manage this, but I have all of that open for tomorrow. So at any moment where I'm like, I can't be productive on this particular thing, I can be productive somewhere else. And if I don't hit all the time this week, I can try adding it to next week, but I'm not going to force myself to get this right. I'm not going to force myself to just write for the sake of writing tomorrow and come up with bad scenes or things that are going to take so much effort to fix. I may as well just see how it goes and work with it rather than against it. That is the plan. In which case, I'm going to go and probably put something on the TV, maybe get something sweet and just chill. And then I will see you all tomorrow morning. Hello, it is Saturday morning. It is the 24th of June. I managed to get up quite early this morning, which I wasn't expecting to happen. So between 7 and I think, yeah, 7:45, I was getting myself ready, having some breakfast, making myself some coffee, which I still have a little bit left of. It is now about 9:30. I put on the first 2.5-hour sprint for the productivity sprints, but because they are not live now, I was able to fast forward bits of it because I felt kind of ready to get started this morning. So I fast forwarded a lot of the kind of beginning section to get to one of the sprints, and then I fast forwarded a little bit in the middle. So rather than it being the full 2.5 hours, I was doing it for like 1:45, and within that they did 2 40-minute sprints, and I just shy on both. Like I just came to a point where I couldn't make myself do it anymore at around 37-38 minutes. Which is still something that I have not done for a long time. I know I did a 50-minute yesterday, but often I can't get more than 30 minutes in a sprint, so I am more than happy with the progress. I managed to do 3,249 words in those 2 sprints combined. With everything that happened yesterday, I have now officially got over 10k in today and yesterday. We are on chapter 8 of 51, so we're about 15% of the way through, and overall in the book we're at about 11, almost 12,000. So progress is definitely being made. I am quite tired this morning. Had some breakfast. I'm gonna have a bit more caffeine, see if that helps. Gonna try and finish my coffee off, and I might even get an energy drink today. Might be that kind of day, because I managed to have one yesterday and I think it helped. So the first couple of scenes I wrote weren't working as well as I thought they were, and I have a few edit notes to myself of something doesn't feel right here and of going through what I think it might be, so I can come back to that later. But the last scene I just wrote is one of the ones that I have been the most hesitant on. One of my characters' kind of origin stories is kind of, I'm not convinced by it, but I think this is working. We'll just have to see. Because that's going to be a very long chapter and a very long scene. So it's going to be a little bit of time before I know whether that's fully working. I think that's liable to be, because obviously when I come back from whatever break I do, that would be the next thing I write. So we'll see what happens with it, if anything. The plan is, so it's about 9:30, the plan is to do a little update and then essentially to have a half-an-hour break until about 10:15. I have some clothing that I need to put out on the washing line. I do need to water all of my indoor houseplant at some point today. And I also have a couple of seedlings that need to go out and start hardening off to get them planted outside. So this break will probably be get the washing out, a quick garden check, and then get some plant seedlings out. And then maybe the next break I do will be a bit of lunch and also watering the houseplants, because they are going to dry up dramatically if I don't do something soon. But overall, in the 10-hour plan for Project Magic, I'm at 5.625 hours. So we are definitely making progress. The sprints have to have about 80 minutes worth of sprinting in them, according to the rules. So if I do those fully, we should be getting there. What I've done in my plan for the day though is assumed that I'm going to do 60 minutes of each of them in case I get to a point of nope, can't do it, which I'm starting to feel a little fatigue. I wonder if there is going to be a point today where I need to take a longer break. Planned in my lunch to be essentially, I think, like an hour and a half, and then come back after that. But because I'm now a bit earlier than I was expecting, because I wasn't expecting to finish that sprint until, well, I was meant to start till 8 and then not finish till 10:30. So I'm a bit ahead of my own schedule. So I might be able to give myself slightly longer breaks, but I'm going to see if half an hour or 45 minutes from writing is going to be enough for now, or whether I need to add a bit more. I don't know. I'm hoping as more and more caffeine kicks into my system, I should be able to get back into this. Just done a quick check on my average per chapter that I do sometimes. So assuming that I'm in chapter 8 and I was finished with chapter 8, which I'm not entirely, I'm averaging about 1,500 words per chapter. So at the moment, this draft is looking like it might be close to 76,000, just over that. Using my current average words per minute is about 45. So I have a little bit of my spreadsheet that works out, based on my average words per minute, how many minutes it will take me then to get to the rest of the draft if I'm assuming 76,000 words. And then I break it out into 20-minute sprints and 40-minute hours. And at the moment, the 40-minute hours is looking like potentially 35, 36, rounding up 36 hours. So if I do manage to get another 5 in this weekend and maybe a couple next weekend, I might be able to break into the sort of 20s for that, which would be good. I cannot stop yawning, so I am going to stop this update and go and spend half an hour doing something else, and then see where we get to when I come back. See if I am in a place to pick it up again, which I'm hoping I will be, but if I need a longer break, I need a longer break. There's plenty of things I can do today, even if it's not creative stuff. There's things and stuff that I should be getting on with, so let's see how this goes. Firstly, I apologise if you can hear the fan. I'm not turning it off. It's really warm in here. So it is now 10 to 12. I've done 2 of the sprints on the last stream that I was looking at. They were both 30 minutes, but one of them I cut off a bit short. So we've done 57 minutes in total. And we got another 2,876 words. So overall, we're just at over 13k for yesterday and today. I was planning for going for the other sprint on there. They had another 30-minute one. But I think because I had such little sleep last night, I'm starting to lag quite a bit. The caffeine isn't helping. I think it's making me more jittery than it needs to. So what I think I'm going to do is stop here for a little bit, go and take, hopefully, a very quick nap. Although I've been known to do a nap and then it goes on for 3-4 hours, so we'll see what happens. And then do some food and see if that settles me. I'm just feeling a bit all over the place, which could be that because I've been writing and I've been staring at the screen and not looking away from the screen, and because I've been kind of completely immersed in what I've been writing, there could just be an element of my brain feels like it's somewhere else than it actually is. I'm having a bit of a moment. So I'm going to take a quick nap and then do myself some lunch, and then the plan will be to come back and start again at about 2:30. I can still hit my goal if I do about another 120 minutes this afternoon. So I need to do that. Is just for the Project Magic. That doesn't include any of the romance stuff, but I think that's just gonna have to be the way of things today. Yeah, so that is gonna be my plan, and then I will catch up with you all when I'm back in some form. So that was the last clip that I actually recorded that weekend, because it's the last time that I really did any kind of writing at that point. So I went to go have a nap, had my lunch, and then I just chilled the rest of the day. I think it was the caffeine, but there was something that was making me really jittery, so I just stopped. But I thought I'd give you an idea of how it all wrapped up before we finish this vlog and go into July's kind of scaled back month. So in total, over the Friday and the Saturday morning, I did 310 minutes worth of writing, and I got a total of 14,386 words. So while I didn't hit the 10 hours that I was planning to, I did hit 7 3/4 hours by my kind of 40 minutes in an hour idea. And I got very close to a 15k weekend, which is amazing for me. I will absolutely take that. But as I said in an earlier clip, July is going to be a lot more relaxed about these things. So you'll probably not see my face now for a little while. I was kind of expecting this vlog to go up in June, and that did not happen. But from this point on, for the rest of the month, it will be timer videos. I've got a plan in mind at the moment of having one per week. So currently for the draft overall, I'm at 16,108. So I will be leaving it there, and my hope is that I can finish it in August and September, using a little bit of October if I need to. So I will see you all in August, hopefully, with what I did do or didn't do, and then picking this book back up again. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Nikki Starr, and I will see you in the next one.